Hi there, my name is Pat Fader and I want to run through how you can use or take advantage of the pre-configured machines in ITNET 110. To complete the activities in ITNET 110, you for the most part will use two Windows 7 machines that are able to talk to each other. And for the very last chapter in the book, you actually need what's called a domain controller, and that's what the third machine here is. So each folder that we have has a virtual machine in it. So when you stop by lab, you want to copy our ITNET 110 folder. In addition to this folder, it wouldn't hurt to get the Windows 7 ISO. Again, an ISO is just think of it as a single file that contains all of the files found on the Windows 7 DVD. So you'd want to also copy our Windows 7 DVD. Why would you need this? Well, if you want to make your own clean install of Windows 7, you would need the Windows 7 DVD. All right, let's get rolling here. So once you have copied this ITNET 110 folder, you're going to want to try out your new machines. So I'm going to launch them. There's two ways of launching a virtual machine. One is you open the folder up that has it, and you just double click the VMX file. That's the file with the three boxes in front of it. You can tell it actually says VMware Virtual Machine Configuration File. That's a VMX file. So I will double click it and launch it. Or you can just do a file open, and you can browse to the folder that has your virtual machines in it. Of course, I have to remember here we go. I'm getting closer. Here we go. Alright, the first thing before you launch it, take a quick look at how much RAM has been assigned to your virtual machines. That's part of the settings. In lab here, I have like 16 gigabytes of RAM, so I would have no problem allocating 1 gigabyte to a virtual machine. If you're running at home, you want to look at how much total RAM your host computer has, and make sure to leave at least a gigabyte or two for your host machine, and then the remaining RAM can be assigned to your virtual machines. So we're going to launch. Before I launch my Windows 7 machine, I'm getting all excited. Let's take a look at the snapshots here. So, like I mentioned, at the start of each chapter, we took a snapshot. So before, if I'm brand new to the class, I'm going to want to take my Windows 7 machine to snapshot 1 because I'm going to start in chapter 1, and I would have to do that for both machines. Part of the settings in the snapshot, as I mentioned, is not only like the actual machine itself, but all the settings associated with it. So even if I take my Windows 7, the second machine here, and let's say that I assign, I'm getting all excited, I assign 8 gigabytes of RAM to it because I have so much free RAM on this machine. And then I take my virtual machine back to snapshot number 1, starting at the beginning. You'll notice that the RAM jumps back down, so that setting is also saved in the configuration file. I'm going to launch both machines right now. This happens the first time you start a machine up when it says, did you move it or copy it? Answer, I moved it. When you say I copied it, VMware tries to prevent two absolutely identical machines from running at one time. So it would assign a new MAC address to that machine. We'll power up the second one as well. I moved it. While this second one is starting up, let's take a look at the first one. Now, if you look, nothing happened. It's almost like what you'd see on a PC that has nothing on the hard drive. It boots up and there's no OS. The reason for that is in chapter 1, you're actually supposed to go through a Windows 7 installation. So what you have to do is, never remind me. You'd have to put a DVD-ROM in this virtual machine's DVD-ROM drive. Okay, I can do that. I would just have to go under Settings and pick the DVD, and this is where that Windows 7 ISO would come in handy. And I would select the ISO, and then I would browse to the Windows 7 ISO that I have that you would have copied if you stopped by lab, or you can download this ISO from our DreamSpark site. Okay. So I have just put the Windows 7 DVD in the virtual machine's DVD-ROM drive. I've double checked that it does say connected and that the DVD-ROM will be connected to power on. So let's just restart this machine. VM reset. Here we go. So now my machine is booting up, It's booting off the Windows 7 DVD, and we should be going through a Windows 7 installation. I'll pause it for a second, give this a chance to start up. Alright, well, we get the starting Windows splash screen here, and at this point I would spend the next 15 minutes and have to go through a Windows 7 installation. I've got other videos on my website that kind of walk through a Windows 7 installation. You'll see that it's really easy. Actually, every student should know how to do this. So don't skip to chapter 1. But for the demo now, well, here we go. Let's take a look at the second machine, Windows 7.2. That one's already pre-configured. What's the password? Well, you can, if you're like me, you kind of forget those things sometimes. So what we did, in the folder that you copy, the ITNET-110 folder, we included a password file. And the password file has the password for your different users. So user X, the password is password lowercase. User X, the password is password lowercase. Our Windows 7 licenses have expired, but don't worry about that because you can always just hit Ask Me Later, and Windows 7 will still operate with full functionality. Your desktop, your wallpaper will get changed a bit. It'll be all black, but that's about it. I'm going to show you one more thing real quick before we jump to Snapshot 2. I'm going to pause it and let this machine come up. Oh, here we go. Well, they made a liar out of me. Our desktop hasn't changed yet. Okay. This copy of Windows is not genuine. That's fine. It'll still work. And what I wanted to show you is, you notice how I'm kind of scrolling back and forth because my virtual machine desktop is a little bit larger than the window. Once you install the Windows 7 or the Vmware Tools, you can actually go under View and hit Fit Guest now. And now at least your virtual machine fits in your desktop's window. After you do a Windows 7 clean installation, and again I have this in other videos, you would just click Reinstall install VMware Tools, and would add this set of utilities that would allow things like what we just saw, managing your virtual machine's screen resolution, as well as things like install better graphics drivers that will work better in VMware Workstation and other things as well. Okay, let's jump to Snapshot 2 real quick. I don't have to shut my machines off because I'm just going to jump to a new snapshot. So Snapshot Manager, Chapter 2, because I want to work on the stuff in Chapter 2 right now. I have to do this twice. That's one machine. I can power that one on. Second machine, I don't want to do an install, so instead I'll just jump to Snapshot number 2. Because again, what we did is we did all the activities in Chapter 1, and then just at the end of Chapter 1, before we started Chapter 2, we took a snapshot. So you'd go to Snapshot 2, and you could then begin the activities in Chapter 2. As far as performance goes, there's two things. One is RAM. You're really going to want, for this class, at least 4 gigabytes RAM. That would be a great number, because that would allow each one of your Windows 7 machines to have 1 gigabyte of RAM, and then your host machine, the physical box, to have 2 gigabytes of RAM. The second thing that really helps is copying these machines to your hard disk. When you're running them off a USB drive, that'll work, but the internal hard disk is faster than your external USB drive. I didn't address this yet, but how big are these files? Because I always have students come in and they have like a little thumb drive. Well, let's just see. Let's see how big the ITNET-110 folder is. It's 60 gigabytes. Okay, so you need at least 60 gigabytes of free space on a USB drive. And then the Windows 7 ISO itself is, I don't know, it's like 3 gigabytes, I want to say. Well, I guess here it's 2.4 gigabytes. Can almost round up to 3. So you need a fair amount of disk space when you come in to copy them, and also a fair amount of time. If you're copying this over USB 2.0, it's going to take 45 minutes to do that. Alrighty. I'm going to power the second the first machine up, so we're going to have 2 Windows 7 machines running. I'm going to pause it right now, and then I'll come back once both machines are up. Alrighty, both machines are up, so I'm going to log in. Password. Ask me later. Alright, second one. Password. And ask me later. Okay. I can do the old fit guess now trick to get these desktops to make them easier to look at. What I wanted to point out is, while you're working in Chapter 2, the lab manual calls for you to download the Windows Automated Installation Kit, which is several gigabytes in size. Instead of doing that, we've already pre-downloaded it for you and actually copied it to this virtual machine's desktop. Actually, both, just the first one here. So we copied the Wake, the Windows Automated Installation Kit, to your desktop, as well as the setup file to install it. And there's other points in the manual in the lab where they want you to copy files off the Windows 7 DVD. We just copied that to your desktop as well. And that kind of explains why some of our virtual machines get rather large. So we've tried to make these labs as streamlined as possible, and an additional effort to do that, we created lab notes. So while we went through the notes, we just kind of, if there's something, activities that need to be modified because we're working in a virtualized environment, activity 1, here, the DVD you need to install is located on the desktop. Activity 2, and so on. We just added additional notes to make these work well. And I keep saying we. It wasn't me. We have an outstanding lab assistant, Steve Webster, that went through and did all these activities and made this really nice documentation for you to make the labs work as painlessly as possible. So I hope this is helpful. I really hope that you make it down to lab and to copy these machines, because it'll make doing the activities in the book a lot easier to do. Thanks, and have a super day.